If you're going through a divorce, you might be worried that you're going to make a mistake. So I want to make sure you don't make a mistake. So let's talk about some of these mistakes people make when they get divorced. One mistake is not filing for divorce. If you're married to somebody that has an overspending problem and you decide to stay married, then you are allowing them to accumulate community property debt while staying married to them when you know you don't want to stay married to them. So one way to avoid this mistake is by filing for divorce. Once you file your petition for dissolution, the court recognizes this filing as the act that kind of starts the clock on your divorce and shows that you're legally separated. So after this petition is not just filed with the court, but also served on your spouse, it starts automatic temporary financial restraining orders that restrict either of you from changing the beneficiaries on the account or making large purchases without notifying the other, with the exception of your legal fees and necessities of life. But more than that, if your spouse has a spending problem, he or she can have that spending problem and it will be his or her own problem, because that spending problem becomes his or her own separate property debt. So this is a mistake where if you choose to stay married and delay initiating your divorce action when your spouse has an overspending habit. Another mistake people make is by agreeing to whatever their spouse wants them to do as far as sharing parenting time with the kids. If you do not believe it is in your children's best interest to have a parenting schedule based on what the other parent wants, don't agree to it. Don't sign anything. You only want to agree to something that you think is in your children's best interest, because once you agree to something, it kind of makes it look like you do believe it's in your kid's best interest. Otherwise, why would you agree to it? So really take your time and don't just try to avoid conflict, because what's going to be worse conflict down the road is your kids not doing well, right? Your kids suffering harm, and then you're going to have to either get the other parent to agree to a different parenting schedule, or we're going to have to go to court, tell the court, you made a mistake when you agreed to this parenting schedule that your ex wanted, or some circumstances have changed since you agreed to it that now show that, this change you want is in your kid's best interest. So don't agree to it in the first place if you don't think it's in your kid's best interest. Another mistake people make related to divorce is listening to the advice of their friends or family. It's armchair lawyering. If you have a friend that yells at the football game because he or she thinks he would be a better quarterback and knows what the quarterback should do, it might be fun to yell at the TV, but you and I know, I certainly would make a terrible quarterback, and probably so would you. But otherwise, you probably wouldn't be a very good divorce attorney unless you're a divorce attorney watching this video and judging me or thinking how great my marketing is. So let's think about that here. Your mom or dad, have they gone through a divorce that ended just exactly how he or she wanted it? If it did, it's not just about his or her prowess in knowing California community property law. It's likely related to the behavior of the other parent or their spouse, right? Your divorce is unlike anyone else's. If it's a high conflict divorce, it's very special, right? And you have your other spouse is probably very difficult to deal with. So whatever your mom and dad are telling you or whatever your friends are telling you to do, they probably have your best interest at heart, and they're trying to help you do what's best for you, but they don't know what they don't know. And also, you might not be telling them every part of the story because there's something you're embarrassed about, or there's something that you don't know is relevant, or they don't know it's relevant. Do you know who might know whether it's relevant? Who definitely would know? Your divorce attorney. If you hire an experienced, capable divorce attorney. Please don't follow the advice of your friends and family and just do what they suggest. Instead, get the advice of your divorce attorney. Another mistake people make is listening to the advice of people on Facebook. Just because someone has a Facebook login credential and they know their password and they can capably log into Facebook doesn't mean they know as much as a divorce attorney. And random people on Facebook, whether they have been through a divorce or they haven't been through a divorce, they don't know your situation and they don't know what's best. So while it's really easy, low-hanging fruit to simply join a divorce support Facebook group, maybe it's nice and you're getting really great support, and I'm very happy for you, because divorce can be a very isolating situation. Don't take it to heart so much. Wait and get the advice of a divorce attorney, because they're not analyzing all of the facts of your case. If they tell you you should move to a different state with your kid, that's the best idea without notifying the other parent, definitely don't do that. That's another mistake. Please don't do that. A lot of parents think, maybe I can secretly move to a different state or a different country or even a different county with my kid. And if I just secretly move, then I don't need to get court orders. I don't need to have conflict with the other parent. Please don't do that. Once you filed for divorce or you filed for separation or custody action is initiated with the court, there's these restraining orders that restrain you from moving with your kid. Please don't violate those. Judges really don't like that. They feel disrespected. And if a judge feels disrespected, the judge is not going to be nice to you. I had a client that hired me after she had already moved with her kid to another state against court orders. And she tried to say, I just didn't know. I didn't realize that I wasn't allowed to move. Unfortunately, that excuse does not work in court. A judge does not care whether you read the court orders or not. A judge does not care if you went to a inexperienced amateur family law attorney and that family law attorney advised you that you could move and you moved. Don't do it. Don't move. Give yourself the self-respect to go to a reputable, experienced family law attorney, like an attorney at my firm, so we can actually advise you on what to do. If you want to relocate with your kid, great. Let's put a strategy in place so you can relocate. Maybe we can get the other parent to agree to the move, or maybe we'll need to do it by court order, but please don't secretly move. That's a terrible idea. Please don't do that. Another mistake people make while getting divorced is the other parent is threatening to relocate your kid to another country and you don't believe them. Please don't do that. We've had many clients, unfortunately, find my firm where the other parent was threatening to move the kid to, it's usually somewhere in Asia, at least with our experience in San Francisco clients. And then they come to our office after the fact, after their child's already been moved to another country. It's really tough once your kid has been moved to another country without your consent, especially if you don't know your child's whereabouts or the other parent's whereabouts. If you have the other parent threatening to relocate your child to another country against your wishes and the other parent is a citizen of a different country, hire a divorce attorney right away so we can secure your rights to your kid and prevent the other parent from moving your kid to another country. I will let you know that we do have very good luck in getting the kids back using the California court system and the police authority. But let me tell you, you'd rather not go down that path. It's extremely stressful, extremely heartbreaking, and it's expensive. You don't want to do it. Just listen. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. If the other parent is saying they're going to steal your kid and move to a different country, let us know about it so we can put safeguards, guardrails in place to protect your child from that harm that may be caused. You might think, if the other parent kidnaps my kid, of course the court's going to order that they be returned to me. But that doesn't always happen. There was a case where the mom moved the child to Australia, and guess what? Eventually, once the court heard the dad's complaint of the kid moving to Australia and him missing his kids, the child had been with the mom in Australia for so long that the judge said it was in the child's best interest to stay in Australia. The focus of the court isn't on, wow, that parent behaved badly and lied. We need to punish that parent by taking the parent's child away from him or her. That's not the judge's standard. It's best interest of the child. So the other parent could be lying, conniving. You could think they're just, the scum of the earth. It doesn't matter, the salt of the earth. It doesn't matter. What matters is what's in the best interest of your child. If your child is flourishing in this other country, has friends, has a good support system, has a good school, maybe they'll get to stay there. So let's not have them move in the first place, okay? Another mistake people make is if the other parent tells you that he or she is going to file for restraining orders against you, believe them. Move out of the house. Don't stay living with that person. It's like a ticking time bomb. They're just waiting to try to antagonize you and upset you to get you to do something stupid so they can file for restraining orders. Because under California law, if they file for domestic violence restraining orders, the court can issue a move-out order, which requires you to move out of the marital residence. And this is constantly leveraged as a litigation tactic. Maybe you did nothing wrong. Maybe the whole thing's made up. But once they file this paperwork, you get ousted from the house, and then it's hard to get back in. So don't do it. If somebody says they're going to file for restraining orders, meet with us. Let's come up with the solution and agreement. Maybe you will agree to move out of the house, but then we'll also have certain financial deal play and a certain deal related to your kid. So make sure you have frequent and continuing contact with your kids. Because if they file a false restraining order, you also could get cut off from your kids. So let's nip this in the bud before it happens and protect you and make sure you're doing smart things so that you're not walking into this mess of having to deal with this messy litigation when your ex already told you what he or she was going to do and warned you about it. Another mistake I see people make in divorce is staying with an abusive spouse. When you're a victim of domestic violence or a survivor, man or woman, that abuse can really get normalized where you don't even realize it's happening. I spoke to a client the other day, and she had gotten restraining orders and now has had her own life for I think like 2 or 3 years. And she was reflecting back with me about her regrets. And she told me her biggest regret was waiting, not doing this sooner. And she just couldn't believe she was with him for, 7 years before she filed for restraining orders. And all this stuff her kids had endured, all this friction. And why did she wait? And she was so mad at herself, and she could never get that time back. And I don't want you to think about it like that, because there's some people that never get out, right? There's some people that never get that moment of courage and file for restraining orders. Or even if it's not restraining orders, maybe there's an abusive environment and you don't need to file the restraining order. It's just about literally moving you and your kids out of the house. Maybe the other parent would allow that. It's just you're so afraid to leave, or you convince yourself you don't want to leave, right? It's that moment of recognition that can kind of ignite you to take action. But use your toolkit, start doing weekly therapy, start doing whatever you need to do to start having the courage to start your next chapter. Because it's true, life's fleeting and it goes by so fast. And she was complaining that she's already in her 40s, and she wished she had done this in her 30s, right? She'd have another 10 years to live her best life, because she's living her best life now. And I remember talking to her when she was in her marriage, and she couldn't imagine any man wanting her other than her husband. And now she has her pickings, You don't know what's out there for you until you break it off and try again and spread your wings and go for it. So don't have those regrets. Do it sooner rather than later if it's the right choice for you and your family. Another mistake people make when they're going through a divorce is related to support. So if you're going through a divorce and you're a high earner, you can reach agreements. We'll negotiate an agreement for you to pay child support. Some mistake people make is they automatically include the bonus child support table. You don't have to include it. I mean, you can include it, but you don't have to. If you include a bonus child support table and there's language in your order related to bonus child support, that can mean that anytime you get a bonus, you have to pay the other parent a piece of that as bonus child support. I'm not saying, of course, not going to order that anyways, but why do that to yourself? We don't need to include the bonus support table. We can see what happens. Sometimes bonuses are calculated quarterly, sometimes they're calculated annually, and sometimes they're not. I'm not telling you not to disclose your bonus. I would never say that. What I'm saying is you don't necessarily have to include the table when you're making an offer related to child support. Another mistake people make when they get divorced can relate to the marital home. Especially right now, it's kind of tough, right? The real estate market's pretty tough. And those low interest rates we used to have aren't here right now. We have clients that really want to stay in their marital home, when unfortunately the truth of the matter is it doesn't make sense. They're not going to be able to refinance the loan to something that makes sense and really take over, the home and buy the other side out. And, usually what's happening now is the house has to be sold just because the mortgage rates are so different. So I think it's really important to take that time to really assess what you're financially able to do or not able to do. If you're financially, it's not just if you're able to buy your spouse's interest, right? Does it really make sense for your life, right? We're not talking about can you not afford it or afford it. Is this really what you're going to choose to do? Or are you just wanting to buy him or her out because you want to win? Or you don't want him or her to get this, right? So it's doing a full-blown assessment to see whether you really can buy out or you want to buy out your ex in the marital home before fighting for it, right? Let's get it appraised. Let's see if you can really get the loan in your name and buy him or her out and what that looks like. So that's a mistake people make. Another mistake people make when going through a divorce is thinking that moving their child's school is a no big deal. Maybe it's a no big deal if the other parent's going to agree to move the school. Maybe it's a huge deal if the other side's not going to agree. Moving your child's school sometimes in the family court is kind of treated like a move away motion. It can be, where there can be a full-blown trial on it. I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous to have a full trial just on choice of school, but we've had it before. And there can even be an evaluation as far as what school is the best for your child. I'm not saying it has to go that way, but it can. So it's a big deal. But at the same time, if you think that your child should change schools because your child is suffering detriment in the school they're at, then it's kind of a no-brainer. We'll want to really assess your situation to determine whether, you have grounds and that whether we believe the court's really going to find that it's in the best interest of your child to change schools. And if that's the case, then, we'll give you our assessment and let you know kind of the roadmap for how we think we should handle it. Another mistake people make when getting a divorce is thinking that just because they look up on great schools that a school is a grade A, that obviously a judge is going to order that their kid change schools if they're now in a C-level school, that the judge is going to order that their child move to an A-level school. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily how our court systems work. If you're in San Francisco and your kid is going to you want your kid to go to a school in Marin, or you want your kid to go to school in the South Bay or the East Bay, maybe it's a grade A school. Maybe that's going to involve you want your kid to move with you to, these burbs. Keep in mind that a lot of the judges in San Francisco, they raise their kids in San Francisco. So they might not value the A versus the C as much as you do. It's just one of many factors, judges will consider as far as deciding on where your kid's going to go to school. And a lot of times judges like to keep kids in the school where they are, unless your kid's suffering detriment in the school where they're at. So that's another big mistake made when getting a divorce. Another mistake people make when they're getting a divorce is wanting to have a week on, week off parenting schedule for really little kids. Think about your really little kid. If you have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, are they really going to do well a full week with you and a full week with dad? No, they're going to miss you like crazy, Under the family code, kids need frequent and continuing time with both parents. When you have little kids, usually the courts will do something like a 2-2-3, where it's 2 days with you, 2 days with the other parent, 3 days with you, then switch. And that way the kid has frequent and continuing time with each of you. And there's not too long of a gap, between the parenting time. And that can be really inconvenient for you, right? You'd much rather just have week on, week off. I get it. That sounds nice to have a whole week without my kids, hypothetically, but I think I would miss them a lot, honestly. The only times I've really seen this ordered for really small kids is if the parents have such a high conflict relationship where we can show that it will really be a detriment for the kid to have so many custody exchanges. And if the custody exchanges, just having all these transitions because of the high conflict nature of your relationship and your communication style and how your disagreements are impacting your child, maybe in very rare cases, a court will order week on, week off. Or if you can get the other parent to agree to week on, week off, that's another possibility. But it's just not something ordinarily ordered by the court if it goes to litigation. Another mistake people make when getting divorced is related to mediation that occurs before a custody hearing. In the family courts, if you're filing a motion related to custody, you automatically go to mediation. Some of the counties have recommending mediation, where the mediator actually recommends a parenting schedule, whether or not you reach agreements with the other parent. And some counties have non-recommending mediation. For example, in San Francisco, it's non-recommending mediation. So if you're in San Francisco, you might think, just because you're going to mediation, that the mediator is going to come up with some magical recommendation as to how you and the other parent are going to share your kids. You're going to be disappointed. That's not going to happen. All the mediator is going to do, usually, is talk to you about what you want and talk to the other parent about what they want. And if you guys are at an impasse, then there's just no agreement, and then it goes to the court. The mediator is not going to make any kind of recommendation for you. So if you're hoping that you're going to somehow sway the mediator by, showing up and saying the perfect thing, and by doing that, the mediator is going to have some say in the outcome of your case, you might be disappointed. The only time a mediator in San Francisco might have any kind of input in the outcome is, hypothetically, maybe if you behave really badly in front of the mediator, or your ex behaves really badly in front of the mediator, maybe the mediator could tell the judge, and that can influence the judge's perception, maybe, of one of you or the other. Or maybe if the judge orders, a tier 2 mediation where the mediator is actually interviewing your child's therapist or something like that, then the mediator might have more of an impact as far as recommending something to the judge related to the therapist they talk to, or maybe if they've been ordered by the judge to interview your kid, something like that. But usually in San Francisco, it's did they reach agreement or did they not? If you have your case in Alameda County, it's a recommending mediator. So in Alameda County, it's really critical how you present to the mediator. And we go through sessions really working with our clients because that mediator has a lot of power. That mediator has the ability to draft a recommendation about what parenting schedule you're going to be able to share your kids, related to holidays, related to everything else. More often than not, the judge is going to rubber stamp that mediator's recommendation. We can always show up in court and advocate against it and tell the judge why it's not in your kid's best interest to rubber stamp the mediator's recommendation. But it's possible it's still going to be, rubber stamped. So, it depends on what county you're in. Another mistake people make in family court is believing that one judge is going to behave the same way as another judge. While all the judges are going to follow the rules of the California Family Code and case law, every judge is also very different. And they all have their own backgrounds and they're all experienced. They're all human beings, right? I'm different from you. We have different opinions about what's right for a child. All judges are different. According to one judge, shaving a child's head might be child abuse. As a punishment. Another judge might find that it's perfectly reasonable for a parent to do that as punishment. Every judge has their own sensibilities of what's right and wrong and what's appropriate for a child. And the best interest of the child is a pretty subjective standard. So just because one thing happened in your friend's case and it went a certain way, if you have a similar situation and you have a different judge, we don't know if that's going to happen in your case. That's why it's important you get legal advice and you don't just think that your case is going to go the same way as your friend's case.